We live in a world that endlessly repeats that the highest goal is to share life with someone. But Carl Jung saw what few dare to admit. Many relationships become invisible prisons, where joy is replaced by exhaustion, emptiness, and a growing disconnect from oneself. Jung taught that true loneliness is not the absence of company, but the inability to share what truly matters. Paradoxically, many people, even when partnered, feel more alone than ever. Perhaps what you see as a temporary mistake is actually your greatest opportunity for freedom, authenticity, and peace. Jung invites us to challenge everything we believe about being single. Society teaches us that being single is a problem to solve, a sign that something is wrong. But Jung said, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is especially true in love. Many people are not together out of love, but out of fear of emptiness, of judgment, of facing their own shadow. Loneliness is never the real problem. The real problem is the wrong company. How many times have you felt you give more than you receive, that your relationship stopped being a refuge and became a burden? Being accompanied is not the same as being happy. Being alone does not mean being broken. How many couples share a bed but not a heart? How many people smile in public but feel like strangers at home? Jung shows us that the absence of connection is the real loneliness. If your peace is found in your own space, why give it up? Teresa spent decades living for others. She married young, had children, managed the home, devoted every day to her husband, paused her dreams believing that sacrifice was the purest form of love. She lived for her family because that's what society applauds, giving until you're empty. But when everything she dedicated herself to disappeared, only silence remained, and within it, the chance to meet herself again. At first, Teresa was consumed by loneliness, days spent staring at the walls, feeling her life had lost all meaning. Who was she without the people she'd dedicated her existence to? Jung teaches that sometimes life takes everything away to return what is essential. Almost by impulse, Teresa signed up for a pottery class. For the first time in decades, she did something just for herself, with no one's permission. With hands in clay and new conversations, something awakened. She wasn't just shaping art, she was shaping herself. Teresa discovered a truth many realized too late. Happiness never depended on others, but on the ability to build a life with meaning for oneself. If everything disappeared tomorrow, if everyone around you left, would you still feel whole? If not, maybe it's not love you need, but a reconnection with yourself. Why do so many awaken late? Because loneliness is seen as an enemy, not an opportunity. We're taught to fear it, to believe being alone means being incomplete, that a full life is a shared life. Jung reveals this fear is fueled by the collective unconscious, repeating patterns and beliefs without reflection. Yet silence, when accepted, becomes a portal to true inner wealth. Most avoid these questions because the answers are uncomfortable and may require letting go of people you've held on to for years. Jung shows that, by surrounding yourself with the wrong people, you distance yourself from your true self. Do you really need someone to be happy, or is that just what you've been sold? The most authentic connections are born from wholeness, not need. It's in solitude that you learn who you are without anyone molding your identity. Silence is powerful, but we've been trained to fear it. Social media, distractions, everything to avoid meeting ourselves. But in silence, something inevitable happens. You encounter yourself, and that confrontation is the beginning of spiritual awakening. Jung taught that the real fear is not of loneliness, but of realizing many relationships survive by inertia. Love becomes habit. You stay out of fear of emptiness. What happens when you ask if the relationship still makes sense, and the answer is no? Not every story ends in shouting or bitter farewells. Some fade slowly. The hardest part is not the end, but accepting that holding on no longer brings happiness. Jung spoke of individuation, the process of ceasing to be what the world expects and becoming who you really are. How can you find your true self if your whole life was shaped to fit someone else? Some awaken at 40, others at 50, and some never ask. If time were short, If life were measured in months, would you stay in the same relationship? When time becomes a limited resource, priorities change. Only what you expect of yourself matters. For many, the answer isn't in a relationship, but in the peace of a home without conflict, the freedom of a day without arguments, the pleasure of making decisions without negotiation. Society rarely shows this path. It teaches that life without a partner is incomplete, that romantic love is the final goal, that being alone after a certain age is failure. Have you ever questioned if that belief is yours or inherited? Conscious singlehood is not loneliness. It's authenticity. It's declaring that your value doesn't depend on your relationship status. It's not about rejecting love, but rejecting the idea that you need love to feel complete. Jung shows that freedom and purpose arise when you find meaning beyond any relationship. Why do so many fear being single? Because what truly scares them is not the absence of company, but silence. We live in a society that teaches us to run from silence, distractions to fill every space. But the more you run from silence, the more you run from yourself. Many seek relationships not for love, but to anesthetize internal discomfort. When love becomes anesthesia, not choice, the crucial question arises: do you really want a relationship, or are you just afraid to be with yourself? If you can't find peace in your own company, you won't find it with anyone. Jung summed it up: those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. The true power of silence is in stopping the search for answers outside and having the courage to look within. You discover that happiness was never about finding someone else, but about finding yourself. Are you ready to face your own silence, or will you keep searching in the world for what only exists inside you? Life teaches that being single is a temporary state, a waiting room before real life as a couple. The idea is ingrained that happiness is always shared and loneliness is a void to be filled. But what if that belief is why so many stay trapped in unsatisfying relationships? Many jump from relationship to relationship, not out of desire for company, but out of fear of themselves. The fear of loneliness is the silent engine behind stories that look like love but aren't. When you enter a relationship out of fear, you cling even to what hurts. Look around. How many couples are together out of habit, fear of starting over, fear of losing what they invested? Life isn't an investment you can't leave. You don't have to stay in a relationship just because it lasted years. Love isn't measured in time, but in quality. If it no longer does you good, what's the point of staying? Often, true loneliness doesn't come when a relationship ends, but when you realize you've spent years with someone who stopped seeing you. That's the most dangerous loneliness. It steals happiness and the chance to find yourself. Jung said, "Until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This applies perfectly to love. If you've never explored your relationship with being alone, how will you know if you seek company for love or fear? Singlehood is not emptiness, but opportunity. It's the only space to rebuild yourself without anyone's influence, the only moment when your life centers on you. Jung taught that when you can't change a situation, the challenge is to change yourself. Singlehood offers that possibility, to reinvent yourself, explore who you are without the weight of pleasing, to learn to make decisions just because you want to, not because someone else expects something. The most uncomfortable truth is that many people don't fear being alone, but not knowing who they are outside a relationship. How many years spent molding habits, dreams, even speech to fit the couple's dynamic? If your relationship ended today, would you know who you are outside of it? What scares most about being single isn't being alone, but the silence. Silence that comes when there's no one left to please, negotiate with, or validate your decisions. Silence that forces you to look at your own reflection and answer, "Who am I?" That silence is, in fact, your greatest opportunity. In it, you recover the voice silenced by couple life, social expectations, and endless concessions. You learn that being alone isn't being incomplete, it's being complete with yourself. It's hard to reach this conclusion because we're taught that a full life is a shared life. The world celebrates weddings, never separations, tells happy endings, never stories of those who chose to be happy alone. If no one had told you that happiness is in having a partner, would you still be looking for it? If you'd never seen a romantic movie, never heard that love conquers all, never believed that being alone is being incomplete, what would you be seeking now? Jung said, "Your vision becomes clear only when you look into your own heart. Those who look outside dream, those who look inside awaken. Looking within, you discover that many decisions about love weren't yours, but society's, your parents', others' expectations. Now that you know this, what will you do? Will you keep seeking company to avoid facing yourself? Or will you dare to know yourself so deeply that if someone arrives, it's a choice, not a need? True fulfillment isn't in finding the right person, but in becoming the right person for yourself. Are you ready for that journey? Have you stopped to think if what you believe brings happiness is really your desire, or just what you were taught to want? Imagine all external pressures disappeared. No one asking about a partner, no one pitying you for being alone, aging without company no longer seen as failure. If that noise vanished, would you still seek someone? When the world quiets and you stop living to please, you discover loneliness isn't a void to fill, but a space to enjoy. Jung taught that purpose is the pillar of happiness. It's not the environment, but the meaning we give to existence. When you find purpose in yourself, company becomes a choice, not a need. The most important love is the one you build with yourself. If you only cultivate a relationship with another, what happens when that person leaves? What do you sacrifice by maintaining an empty relationship? Your identity. Life is too short to live by others' expectations. Teresa understood this late, after decades following a script she didn't write. She cared for her husband, raised children, postponed desires. When the house emptied, silence remained. And, in it, the chance to ask, "What do I really want?" She heard the answer and realized it's never too late to start over. Life is measured by the quality of your relationship with yourself, not by time spent with someone else. What if being single isn't waiting but freedom? As a child, did you need someone to feel complete? No. You simply lived, explored, were enough for yourself. Somewhere along the way, you were taught that being alone is a mistake, that fulfillment is only found in another, that life is incomplete without someone to share it with. What if you challenge that belief? Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you really are. Singlehood gives you that privilege. Alone, you don't need to negotiate dreams, justify choices, or mold yourself to fit someone else's life. Every morning you can ask, 'What do I want to do today?' And the answer depends only on you. The problem is that many are so afraid of loneliness that they never give themselves the chance to discover what truly makes them happy. Jung said, "Those who find a why can bear almost any how." If your life has meaning, if you find purpose in your passions, you don't need anyone else to give your existence meaning. Then, being alone becomes a choice, not a problem. Few reach this point because society doesn't prepare us to enjoy our own company. From an early age, we're taught that relationships are worth more than freedom. Sharing life is the final goal. Happiness is only real if shared. But what if company doesn't bring happiness? What if the relationship makes you feel lonelier than being alone? How many spend years in relationships that only wear them down, adapting instead of loving? How many stay not for love, but for fear of being alone? The great revelation. Being alone isn't loneliness, it's being with yourself. Many think they need someone else to fill voids, but what's missing is learning to enjoy their own company. The problem was never loneliness, but the fear of facing it. When you overcome that fear, you see being alone as opportunity, not punishment. The peace of a home without arguments is worth more than empty company. The freedom to decide without asking permission is invaluable. True loneliness is being accompanied but feeling invisible. You discover that happiness was never in another, it was always in you. It's hard to understand because we're taught to seek outside what can only be found within. We're made to believe self-love is a consolation prize, independence is a stage, Life's purpose is to find someone to complete us. But what if you're already complete? Jung said, loneliness is not the absence of company, but the profound well-being of being with yourself. When you enjoy your own presence, loneliness becomes a gift. Silence becomes clarity. Love becomes a choice. When you have yourself, no one is indispensable. What will you do with this truth? Have you thought about how many decisions were really yours and how many were imposed by others' ideas of happiness? We're taught to avoid loneliness, that being alone means something went wrong, that romantic love is the final destiny of a well-lived life. But what if all that is a lie? What if what you fear most is actually what you need most? Teresa believed that lie until she awakened. Decades following someone else's script, giving herself to husband, children, home, sacrificing dreams, desires, time. One day life left her alone. In silence, she discovered, fulfillment wasn't in everything she gave, but in everything she never allowed herself to receive. When she signed up for pottery, walked alone, asked what she wanted, she realized, freedom is choosing yourself. It's not that you can't be alone, it's that you never learned to enjoy it. As a child, did you need someone to tell you what made you happy? No. Somewhere along the way, you were told happiness is only real if shared, independence isn't enough, romantic love is the supreme goal. But what if all that is just social construction? Jung said, the greatest freedom is to choose in any circumstance. When you choose to see being single as a space for growth, something awakens. You value the peace of sleeping in a calm bed, the tranquility of a home without arguments, the freedom to do what you want without explaining to anyone. You discover that happiness never depended on someone else, that the peace of being with yourself is a rare treasure. If this message resonated with you, write in the comments, I choose relationships that multiply my energy and prosperity. And remember, your most important relationship is with yourself. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and continue your journey of self-knowledge with the content suggested on the screen. It was chosen especially for you.